All right, everyone. The time is about 4 o'clock p.m. on the dot. Thank you all so much for logging in. I'm sure you all have had a long day and are ready for the weekend. I am Asia Simpson. I am your wellness and health benefits consultant. I'm sure if you have attended these before, you have seen my face in the past doing these workshops. Thank you for attending today's workshop. The topic is HMO versus PPO. And I want to let everyone know that this will be a recorded session. So if for whatever reason you have to leave a bit early, or you know someone who is joining a little late, no worries, you will be able to replay this. Typically what happens is on a weekly basis during the time that we are doing the virtual fair events, we will send out the recording from the previous week along with the link for the upcoming session. So stay tuned for that if you feel like you might need to review this again. This is an important session, I believe, for a lot of people, kicking start open enrollment. It helps give you a lot of good information to help with any decisions you might think you might need to make in terms of open enrollment for the plans that you intend to enroll in, or if you're just trying to get educated to determine whether or not this is the current plan that you're in is the best plan for you. I want to make sure that I mention to everyone that this is the first of multiple workshops. And so if you have not received the flyer, maybe someone told you by word of mouth to attend, just know that there are other sessions. And in fact, before I get into the meat of today's session, I just want to do a quick little share screen of the flyer that should have gone out. You may already have in your inbox or you may not, but I'm just going to show it real quick just for all of you to see. I'm going to make this a little smaller because I got this pretty big. So let's bring it down to 100%. So today, if someone can just take themselves off mute and just tell me if you can see my screen. I want to make sure everyone can see what I'm sharing.
I can see it, Asia.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So this is the flyer that was sent out. Hopefully you guys have that. As you can see, for today's date, Thursday, August 10th, this is the one that we are doing today. And next Thursday, we will be doing a workshop on flexible spending. So don't forget to log in for that. It will be at 4 p.m. So we will cover that next week. And then the third week of this month, or the final week of this month, I should say, we're going to be doing a different topic. And it kind of connects to what we are talking about today. If you have had or are having issues with your health plan, in the sense that maybe you have had, say, x-rays done and you are waiting for your health plan, your provider to upload that information and provide it to your doctor, and it is just taking really long, something like that, and it's an excessive amount of time, and you're just not getting anywhere with your health plan, you can do something like submitting a complaint through the California Department of Managed Healthcare, and that will get them going. Or if you have had a diagnosis and the treatment that you would like to pursue has been denied by your health plan, that might be an opportunity for you to submit a complaint. Or you're just having overall really bad experiences. This might be the workshop for you to attend to find out whether or not it might be time to get the California Department of Managed Healthcare involved to help resolve an issue that you might be having with either a provider or your health plan. So don't miss out on that workshop. That is going to be some good content for people who may have been having problems, and that'll be the third workshop. And then I want to make sure I tell you guys about the virtual vendor booth session. In the past, many of you have attended the workshops where we talk about various topics like HMO versus PPO or flexible spending, but only a few of you have really attended the virtual vendor booth. And it may be because you're not really sure what it is, but I want to just take 2 seconds to explain it. This is a virtual fair in the sense that we will have all of the vendors that would have typically come on site, like Anthem Blue Cross, Kaiser Permanente, United Healthcare, MetLife, VSP Vision. they're going to be all in a session similar to where we are now, but each of those vendors will have their own breakout rooms where you can go into their rooms anytime between 3:30 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. and talk to them one-on-one. Ask them any questions that you might have. Now, obviously, you don't want to share your specific information in the Zoom space, but you may have questions regarding plan design. For example, I highly encourage you all to go into the VSP, the vision room, to find out more information about the enhancements on your vision plan. Many of you don't know about that. So I just wanted to just take a second to go over that with you all and share this information with people who may not be able to attend today. This flyer will be posted on the benefits page. You should
it's already out there, Asia.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Laura. This is posted on the benefits page, so you can go and check this out if you don't have it in your inbox. You can reach out to me directly if you have questions on the workshops that are coming up. So I just want to make sure you all are in the know about that before we hop into today's topic. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to stop share on that. Very few housekeeping items. Just know, again, this session is recorded. You are feel free to keep yourself off of video if you don't want to be on video. And if you please, could you please make sure you stay on mute until you have a question? And I will be answering questions that you guys might have. If it is a very specific question, though, I may ask that you and I talk one-on-one because we don't want any of your personal information out here in the public, okay? All right. Yes, the virtual vendor, there is a question in the chat box. The virtual vendor booth that is on August 31st, that session will not be recorded. That is the only one that won't be recorded because it is kind of like it's like a breakout, they're breakout rooms. And so each of the vendors will have their own room, and there won't really be a way to tape each and every single session that's, going on at the same time. So unfortunately, that one won't be. All right, let's go ahead and get started. What I'm going to start off with doing is sharing the presentation that we will be covering today. I want you all to know that this presentation will also be provided with the recording. So you will have two things that will be sent out to you. You'll have the recording of today's session as well as the presentation deck that we are looking at today. So if you, hopefully you all can see my screen. If you can't, please let me know. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so what are we going to cover today? Well, if you have ever been to one of these sessions, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the differences between an HMO versus a PPO and why that even matters, okay? Some people don't understand why it matters, but it does matter. And we'll talk about why. We'll talk about some very important terms that it will be a good idea for you to be familiar with, because it will help you with understanding if you ever do get to a place where you need to ask questions. There will be terms that are used by either myself or if you ever have to call your health plan, and it's good to have an idea of what they're talking about. And there are some main terms that will be covered. We'll recap the differences between the HMOs versus PPOs. And then I'm going to take a second to talk a little bit more with an example about how PPOs work, because they are a little bit more complicated than an HMO, okay? And so I want to ensure that you guys have an understanding of how that works. And then if you will humor me, we will do a knowledge check. And then once we do that, we will go ahead and move on to the CalPERS plan options for the upcoming year, because there have been there is a difference in what plan options are available. And that's part of one of the things I like to have you guys attend this, so that you know for the new plan year what's changed. We will also take a look at what pharmacy benefit managers manage the different plans. I'll briefly talk about what that is so you guys have an understanding of what the heck a pharmacy benefit manager is. We'll look at some resources, and then if there are any questions left over at the end, I'll open it up for you guys to ask any questions you might have, okay? I will periodically try to make sure that I answer some questions, but I'm going to try to get through the content and answer the majority of the questions at the end, if you don't mind. Okay, HMO versus PPO. Why is that even important? Well, honestly speaking, whether you have an HMO or a PPO, it really does affect how you actually see your doctors, and which doctor's offices you go to, which facilities you see. It actually affects what you pay out of pocket all throughout the year in terms of deductibles, co-pays, co-insurance, what's the maximum amount of money you'll pay throughout the year. All of those things are impacted by whether or not you have an HMO or a PPO. So it really just affects how you use your plan and how you can use your plan. So, well, what's an HMO or a PPO? And I'm sure you all have probably heard the terms before, but never really knew what it stood for. So, an HMO is a health maintenance organization. That is like the long version of it. And it's essentially a type of health insurance plan that usually limits the coverage of your plan, meaning it limits the providers you can see, it limits the facilities you can go to those who are only contracted to your health plan. And generally, you really can't see anyone outside of your health plan's network, except in the case of a true emergency. Okay. Now, the difference between an HMO and a PPO, the PPO stands for Preferred Provider Organization. And that is a type of health plan where you pay less if you use providers within your health plan's network. However, you don't have to. You can see doctors outside of your health plan's network. You can go to hospitals outside of your health plan's network. But what you do tend to incur in many cases is a more expensive out of pocket copay, deductibles, etc. If you utilize a PPO. And there are some instances where your health scenario, your health situation may warrant you seeing a PPO because access to care moves a little bit faster, a little bit more smooth sometimes with a PPO. And so some people may opt for it. And then for others, their health situation may not warrant that, so it may not be necessary for them. So I will say that there is a plan within the CalPERS plan network, the Blue Shield Access Plus plan. It is an HMO, and I just want to caveat this. It's an HMO, but it does kind of have a component of it that works a little bit like a PPO, but it is classified as an HMO. And so I just want to caveat that because we're going to talk a little bit about that as we move further into today's presentation. So just keep that in the back of your mind, and then we're going to circle back to that piece later. So the important terms I mentioned that it will be a really good idea for you to make sure you know are four terms really. I mean, there's lots of terms, but what I would say, these are going to be your top ones that you really just want to make sure you understand. And the first one is deductible. And essentially, the deductible is the amount of money that you've got to pay out of pocket first before your insurance will kick in for services that have, um, instead of a copay, like a flat fee, they have like a percentage. So that's generally characteristic of a PPO. And we're going to talk about that more later, but you'll see something where it says like 10% or 20%. Well, before that 10 or 20% co-insurance, meaning 10 or 20% that you would pay, kicks in, you've got to pay a set amount, which is a deductible first. Okay. And I'm going to have a scenario that explains that out in like a whole example so you can put all that into perspective. Most of you are familiar with a copay. A copay is basically it's a set fee for a specific service. Many of you have gone to your office visits and had like a flat copay, $20, $30, might be different depending on your plan. I mentioned before co-insurance. And a co-insurance is kind of like a copay, but it is the cost or your financial responsibility for a particular service, and it is depicted in a percentage. So for example, You might hear people say, oh, I've got an 80-20 plan or a 90-10 plan, and you may have been like, what in the heck are they talking about? Well, what that essentially means is that if you've heard 80-20, or you've seen on the side-by-side that is usually posted on the benefits webpage, you may have seen like 20%. What that basically means is that for that particular type of service, the coinsurance is, in this example, 20%. You would pay 20% of whatever the cost of that service is. So if that service was $3,000, you would pay 20% of whatever that cost is after you pay your deductible. I mentioned that before. Out-of-pocket maximum. Out-of-pocket maximum is the maximum amount of money in a given year that you will have to pay out of pocket towards the cost of your medical care, any type of medical expenses. And I'm going to break that out for you in a little bit here. So before I go into back into HMO versus PPO. So those are the four primary terms that I would say will be important for you to know. And that's what you're going to hear spoken of mostly when we start to get more into detail as the slides go by. And it'll be more likely what you're going to hear from your doctor's offices and your health plan when they're talking. So if you've heard these terms before, you're a pro, you don't need to focus on any of that. But if you're new to this, feel free to let me know if you need a little bit more explanation, but hang tight for a second because you might get the explanation you need in a couple of slides. So going back to HMO versus PPO. So I want to kind of go back over and talk a little bit about those differences in more detail. So I mentioned to you before an HMO, a health maintenance organization. If you have an HMO, you already know that before you can even utilize your plan, you've got to pick your doctor. Your primary care doctor has to be selected before you can go in for your first appointment. That is the most important thing before you use care. And you have to do that because the way that a health maintenance organization works, one of the primary things they are trying to do with this type of plan design is to help limit costs. So by design, an HMO is generally going to be a plan that doesn't cost as much out of pocket from an employee deduction standpoint, you know, what you'll have to pay towards the premium. It may be nothing based off of what your bargaining units have established, but there may be maybe a very little to very small cost, but it might be almost nothing in comparison to what the cost of the PPO is. But in general, an HMO is trying to limit costs. That's the reason why they limit your access to care to that within the plan's network, meaning you can only see doctors in your plan network. You can only go to facilities within your plan network. And then to add another layer to it, your primary care doctor actually is kind of like the gatekeeper before you can see any specialty care. So you're going to need what you call a referral before you can see, like, say, for example, you want to see a dermatologist. You've got to go to your primary care doctor first, and then they have to submit a referral before you can go see a dermatologist, if you will. Okay. So because of all this limitation in how you move and how you use your plan, generally, as I mentioned before, this tends to have lower premiums. And you don't generally have to worry about any bills, unexpected bills, because if it's not covered, it's just the care is just denied altogether. You just won't be able to utilize it. The PPO, on the other hand, you don't have to have a primary care doctor assigned. You can go to whichever doctor you want to, so long as they're accepting patients and they're accepting your plan. And even if they're not accepting your plan, you likely can still go see them. Well, I shouldn't say that, not accepting your plan, even if they're out of your plan's network, because they do have to be accepting your plan in order for you to utilize it with them. You don't need referrals. So if you decide you've got a need to see a dermatologist, all you need to do is just look up whichever dermatologist you'd like to see, check to see that they're accepting patients, and you can make your appointment. You don't need to go through your primary care provider to do that. You can even see any doctors that aren't even contracted with your plan network. Now, what that's going to mean for you, though, is that the cost that you pay for those services to see an out-of-network doctor, meaning a doctor or a facility that's not contracted with your health plan, it is likely going to cost you more money than whatever it is that you see in the side-by-sides or in the summary plan description that shows you how much does it cost to go see, a specialist in network. It may cost different because they're not bound by whatever contracted prices are that your health plan has with your in-network providers. And you pay for this flexibility. So generally, PPOs have a higher monthly premium. And as I mentioned before, there are circumstances that some people have that warrant needing to be able to have the flexibility to see a dermatologist or whatever type of specialist without having to go through the referral process. Because if you have an HMO and have had to get a referral, you know that sometimes that process can move a little bit slow. So there's that piece of things. Now, I also want to mention to you about a PPO is that if you're not very savvy with or understand clearly how a PPO works, I would caution you to make sure, number one, you stay in network, or if you are out of network, that you do ask quite a few questions before you actually get care, because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you go and have this idea in your mind that the cost is going to be the same as what it would be if you were in network, and then end up with a bill that you weren't expecting. So that's something that you want to keep in mind, okay? All right, so let's recap the differences real quick before we move on. This is just kind of an old plan breakout, just so you can, for illustration purposes, the current plan summary comparison will be up on the benefits page soon as CalPERS sends out all of the final documents. But for comparison standpoint, just so you got, for illustration standpoint, here's what we're looking at. So on that comparison document that you generally look at, on the left side, we have the HMO plans. And on the right side, you usually have the PPO plans, okay? So this is an old one, as you can see that we've got PERS Choice and Care in there. Right now, the PPO plans are only PERS Platinum and PERS Gold. We're gonna look at those here in a minute. So HMO plans, recap. You've got to choose your primary care doctor. You have to have a referral to see a specialist. You can't go out of the network. So you got to pretty much stay in your own yard, so to speak. And unless it's the case of emergency, you're not going to be able to utilize any type of services or providers outside the network and get it covered by your plan. And because of all of this control, generally those have lower premiums. And you don't generally see with an HMO, you won't really see a deductible. Okay, that's going to be very characteristic of a PPO. Okay, and you also really won't see co-insurances with an HMO. Okay, you will see co-payments though. With a PPO, you're not required to choose your primary care doctor. You can go see who you want. You get direct access to specialists. You don't need a referral. So long as they're accepting your plan and they're accepting patients, you can go see them. And generally, because of the flexibility, it's usually a higher premium, and you do see a deductible. We're going to go over the breakout of how that works over the course of a year. And PPOs do have both co-payments and co-insurance. Okay. So before I get into how PPOs work, I just want to take a quick stop here. Just want to make sure I haven't lost anybody. Anybody got any questions so far? Are we clear as mud, or anybody got any questions thus far on anything that I've covered? I'm going to take that silence to mean we are all clear. And so what I'm going to do is, because I know that PPOs are a little bit more complicated, what I want to do in this next slide is give you an example scenario. The example scenario is not reflective necessarily of the plans you guys the PPO plan you currently have, but it's the general way that the PPO plans work, okay, in a given year. So let's just say this scenario, this is, like I said, not the same deductibles or plan design that you currently have. But let's just say in this particular example, you have a plan where your plan begins January 1, ends December 31st. In this case, your coinsurance is 20%. That means when you see a percentage for a particular service, in this scenario, you would pay 20%. And this ABC health plan, which you would pay 80%. Okay. The deductible is going to be $1,500 in this example, and the out-of-pocket limit is going to be $500, okay? Or 5,000, sorry. Now, I want to just remind you real quick before I get into the whole scenario, a deductible is something that has to be paid first before the coinsurance kicks in, okay? It's almost like, what's a good example? It's almost like if you are going to a festival and they say you get 20% off of drinks and food at the festival. But before you can actually get that 20% off, you've got to pay this $100 entry fee. It's kind of how, just from an illustration standpoint, this works. So in order to get that 20% coinsurance, you've got to pay that $1,500 first, okay? Hopefully that didn't confuse you guys. But after your deductible is met, then for your services, every time you have a service that requires a coinsurance, then it would be, you would pay the 20%. You don't have to keep paying the deductible over and over again. Once you hit that deductible, then your 20% coinsurance kicks in, okay? So the out-of-pocket limit is the maximum amount that you will pay in a given year towards the cost of your expenses, so long as they are in network, okay? All bets are off if you go see a provider out of network. So you want to be careful with that, okay? So in this example, let's just say you go to the doctor, you have a service, and the service is $125. You have not yet met your deductible of $1,500. So your plan doesn't pay any costs towards the cost of this in this particular instance. So the service is $125, you pay $125, plan pays $0. Okay, so you see how the balancing act here goes. All right, well, let's just say you have to go to the doctor several times throughout the year, and then by like the sixth or seventh time, or fourth or fifth time, just depending on how much the services are, you get to a point where you have paid that deductible. And you have a service by the sixth visit that costs $75. If by the time you go to this visit where the service is $75, you've already paid your $1,500 deductible, then instead of paying that full $75 for the service, you are going to pay 20% of that, which hopefully my math is right. And it would be $15. And then the plan would pay the other $60, which would be 80%. So if you can see the illustration here, once you hit this midpoint, or this particular point might not be midpoint, plan, you pay 20, plan pays 80. But let's just say you have an unfortunate year and you have to keep going to the doctor. And unfortunately, you get to a point where you have paid $5,000. God forbid that ever happens to any of you. $5,000, and you have hit that amount, which is your out-of-pocket max. And let's just say in this example, you go in and you have a service that's $200. You are in network. At this point, you're not paying anything. The plan is going to pay the full cost, because at that point, you have hit your out-of-pocket limit. Now, many people may say, well, that's never happened to me. Well, the way the plans are set up is that for many people, it's set up such that most people don't hit that out-of-pocket limit. Now, I won't say all, because there are a lot of people who have health situations that do warrant it, and especially with the given last few years with COVID, some people may have had some issues health-wise that warranted, more doctor's visits and more medical expenses than in a normal year. But for the most part, a lot of people don't hit that out-of-pocket limit because the plan does have certain things built in to help limit your costs. But if you do reach the scenario where you hit your out-of-pocket limit, then, in that given year, you're no longer paying anything out of pocket for in-network services and services that are covered. The plan picks up the 100%. And so once you get to the end of the year, December 31st, then that's kind of like the full cup. So once January hits, then everything starts all over again. So this whole cycle starts all over again. So I wanted to explain, that's essentially how a PPO works. Again, just know that when you go throughout the year and you go and have services that are out of network, those services don't count into the out-of-pocket maximum. So just be careful with that. It is a luxury to be able to go and see whichever providers you want. However, just know that, if we're adding up the out-of-pocket maximum, those out-of-network services are not going to go into that bucket, if you will. So real quick, I just would like to get a little bit of volunteer action here. I want to make sure that I haven't lost anyone. Is anyone brave enough to take themselves off mute and tell me one thing that characterizes an HMO?
I'm guessing you don't want me to be involved in this, huh?
No, actually, I don't. Thank you anyway, Laura. Come on, brave souls. I know you're out there.
You have to choose your care provider.
That is absolutely correct. Ding, 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 ding. Who was that said that?
Jolene.
Jolie?
Jolene, as
Jolene?
in the song.
Oh, Jolene. So
You got
yes. Can you send me a quick message in the chat? I'm gonna get you a $10 gift card for being a
Ooh,
brave soul.
thank you. Will do.
All right. All right. Can we get one more brave soul to tell me what characterizes a PPO? Natalie, I see your hand up.
Yes, a referral. You need a referral to see a specialist
Yes, absolutely correct.
compared to a PPO.
Yes, correct. All right, Natalie, I've got you for a $10 gift card as well.
Oh, thank you.
No problem. All right. Does anybody else want to take a stab at it? Take a stab at what's the difference, but we've got two questions left. What's the difference between an out-of-pocket maximum and a deductible?
Did anybody raise their hand or?
I don't see a hand raised.
Okay, what was the question again?
We've got what is
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
What is the difference between point insurance and copay?
Sure, yes.
I'm so sorry. It's because I had disconnected and I reconnected again. So I was like, which question are we on?
That's okay. I'm just wanting to get participation here. So you can answer the question, the difference between coinsurance and copay, or the difference between out-of-pocket max and deductible.
Got it. I'll do the first one. So out-of-pocket maximum, you had mentioned at the beginning of the year, like January 1st to December 31st, you had said that your out-of-pocket maximum is the most that you would pay before, and then the deductible is how much you have to pay before that the PPO jumps in. So I would have to pay my $500 deductible before PPO will jump in on their half, and then my out of pocket is that $1,500, for example, that I would have to pay for that entire year before it kicks in.
Close. I'm going to give it to you anyway because you were brave enough to give it a stab, but you're very close. So the deductible is the amount that you would need to pay first before your co-insurance will kick in. So you had that right. Out-of-pocket
Awesome.
maximum, the out-of-pocket maximum is the maximum amount that you will pay in a given year towards the cost of your medical expenses, and that's stipulated by your health plan. So I'll give it
Awesome.
to you.
Thank you for the clarification.
No problem. All right, we've got one more opportunity for a $10 gift card. Does anyone want to try to take a stab at it? No?
I'll
Going
go.
once? Go ahead.
I'll go. So the difference between co-insurance and copay, co-insurance is the amount that your insurance company pays after you've paid your out-of-pocket maximum. And then your copay is what you pay per visit when you see your physician.
So very close. And so I'm going to give it to you because you tried. So copay is, let me just go back a slide. The copay is the flat amount that you pay when you go see your office visit to see your doctor. It's a flat amount. The co-insurance is the amount out of pocket that you'll pay for a service that is represented in the form of like a percentage. So 80-20. So it would be 80% of the cost of that service will be covered by the health plan, and 20% of the cost of that service will be covered by you after you pay your deductible.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. And could you send me just a quick direct message just so that I know to remember to send you your gift card, okay?
Sure, thank you.
Okay, just so you guys know, these will be e-gift cards. So I need to make sure I have your email addresses. So, all right. So thank you guys for trying. I know that sometimes it's a little bit daunting, but I do feel like when you hear it again, or you hear someone talking about it other than the facilitator, it does help with the information sticking. And I do want this to stick. And don't worry, there's not going to be a test at the end. And if you don't remember this, you can always reach out to me or refer to the video or look at the slide deck. All right, so let's take a quick look at the CalPERS updates for the upcoming year. Plan changes, not really any plan changes. So 2024 changes. Now, I want to make sure you guys know that this does take effect January 1 of 2024. So everything that's in play right now for 2023, that goes all the way till to December 31st. So all health plans will have this may not be really anything new, and it may not really mean much of anything, but pharmacy mail order program with opt-out option guiding members to use home delivery for non-specialty maintenance medication. And that's really just encouraging you to use pharmacy mail order. You do have the option to opt out of pharmacy mail order. But they will provide information on how to help you use home delivery for non-specialty maintenance meds. So for example, if you have like, for me, I have allergy medicine that I take every 30 days. So that would be a maintenance medicine. And I would actually have home delivery for that particular maintenance medication because it doesn't require any type of really follow up or any type of special administration like a nurse needs to administer, etc. You do have the option with this one to opt out of pharmacy mail order program, and they will provide you with information on how to use home delivery for non-specialty maintenance medication. Okay. For PPOs only. So if you don't have a PPO, this doesn't really apply to you. So while PPOs do give you flexibility, they are always trying to encourage you to use in-network. So one of the changes for the upcoming year is the site of care lab services incentives waives co-insurance when members use preferred lab providers for routine lab tests. Pharmacy mail order program with it's the same thing for the PPOs, the pharmacy mail order change as what you saw in the previous bullet. It applies to the PPOs, but also with the PPOs, if you use an in-network or preferred lab provider, then they will waive, if there is a co-insurance that they normally would have you pay, they'll waive it. So it's going to behoove you, if you find that you have to have some regular labs, to just check with whatever lab your doctor uses. You can call the lab or you can call your health plan and just say, hey, my doctor just ordered me to go get some routine lab work from ABC lab. Is this in network or is it a preferred lab? And if it's not, you can ask your doctor, hey, this is not a preferred lab. Can you send me to, EFG lab? And that way you will save yourself a few coins. Something I want to make sure I note to you guys, which is important for you who have PPOs and who are considering a PPO, the PERS Gold out of network deductible is going to be 1,000, go from 1,000 to 2,500. And then for PERS Platinum, it's going to go from 500 to 2,000. What does that mean? Okay, what that means is, as we've talked about in-network services and providers where there is a coinsurance involved. And before the coinsurance will kick in, you have to pay your deductible first. Okay, that's for in-network. The same thing happens out of network. Your coinsurance amounts are different out of network. If you have a PERS Gold plan, the split is 80-20. So if you see that you have a coinsurance, after you pay your deductible, you have to pay 20% of that. And your deductible is $1,000, okay? But if you go out of network, the deductible is not $1,000. The deductible is $2,500. And your coinsurance is likely different too. We'll look at some slides in a couple slides from now, and we can see what those are. I think it's 60-40 split. So it can get pricey. And so this is important for you to know, especially if you regularly see an out-of-network provider. For the PERS Platinum, it's not quite as expensive. It is more of a premium plan, but it still is, it has increased. So from 500 to 2,000 when you go out of network. So you can see they're really encouraging you to stay in network. So when you go out of network, it's going to cost you. So those are the changes. In terms of plan designs, the plan designs have not actually changed in terms of the current plans you have, like if you have Kaiser, any of those plans, those have not changed. And if you would like to actually see all of this in black and white, you'll be able to see this. And I'm going to mention this in the next slide, but I want to say it now. Actually, let's just go to the next slide. So when we're talking about plan options that are available to you as a Montebello Unified School District employee who has CalPERS as your administrator for your plans, you have a lot of plan options. However, if you see in red, as of January 1, if you are enrolled in HealthNet Smart Care, you're going to need to make a new plan election. That is no longer going to be an option. It is being eliminated from the plan offerings. HealthNet Salud Más, still here. And if you're not familiar with what Salud Más is, it is a plan that is typically for those who have family members or frequently go to Mexico. There is a network coverage out there, and so that plan is still maintained. But HealthNet Smart Care no longer be offered, okay? You will still have Kaiser Permanente, Blue Shield Access Plus, and Trio. You will still have Anthem, Blue Cross, Traditional, which is the full network, and Select, and you'll have both of the United Healthcare and United Healthcare Harmony plans. And then you've got PERS Platinum and PERS Gold, okay? All right, so I get questions all the time. We're at about 1/4 till, so we're making good time. I get questions all the time. And no problem if you have to leave, because you'll be able to review the recording of this. What are the differences between, the plans that seem to have more than, one type, like an Anthem Blue Cross, a Traditional, and a Select? So here's the difference. I'm going to break it out pretty simply. So the difference between the Traditional and Select is a matter of the pool of doctors that you have to choose from and the pool of facilities that you can go to that are considered in network. Traditional has a larger network of doctors and facilities than the Anthem Blue Cross Select. Now, just because you have an Anthem Blue Cross Select plan and your doctor's in that plan doesn't necessarily mean that it won't be, or just because you have traditional doesn't necessarily mean it won't be in the select plan. But just know that if you are just choosing doctors for the first time for an HMO, just know that the number of doctors you have to choose from and the network of facilities that you can go to is going to be larger with the Anthem Blue Cross traditional plan than with the select plan. Outside of that, those two plans, they are set up the exact same, okay? The out-of-pocket limit is the same, so you don't have to worry about the plan differing in terms of like the actual design of the plan itself, okay? This is more of a network difference. Now, Blue Shield HMOs. Now, this one is where there is an actual difference, okay? So Blue Shield Access Plus does in fact have a larger network of doctors and facilities, whereas the Trio has a smaller network of facilities and doctors. Blue Shield Access Plus, I mentioned this one before. It is an HMO, but it does have the self-referral option to see a specialist. While you do supposedly have it with the Blue Shield Trio, sometimes it can be a little bit more of a challenge because the doctors that are oftentimes in these, that are participating in the self-referral option may come in and out of whether or not they want to allow you to participate in the self-referral option. I have seen that there are more issues in the Trio plan than there are with Blue Shield Access Plus. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't people who have had problems with the Blue Shield Access Plus plan. But if you have to choose between the two plans, I would say the Blue Shield Access Plus is going to offer a richer option for you in terms of the number of doctors and facilities that you have to choose from. So what the self-referral option does is if you, as you know, with an HMO, you have to get a referral from your primary care doctor to, let's just say, let's use the example of the dermatologist because I've been using it. If you want to see a dermatologist, generally in an HMO plan, your primary care doctor has to give you the referral. However, if the dermatologist that is a part of the Blue Shield network is participating in the self-referral option, then you can actually go see them without having to get the referral from your doctor. The way that you know whether or not they are is to simply contact the Blue Shield customer service and they can give you a list of providers who are participating and what their specialties are. Okay, so that's how you can find out, okay, well, how do I know which ones? Contact Blue Shield and they will generally provide you like a PDF that they can email you. Okay. United Healthcare HMO differences, same thing as I mentioned before. Really, the plan design is the same. The only difference between those two is the network of doctors and facilities that you have to choose from. United Healthcare, the original Signature Alliance one, that is a larger network than the Harmony. Okay. PERS, Platinum, and PPO. I do want to take 2 seconds to make sure that you understand the differences between the two. The PERS Platinum is the 90-10 plan. That means they're referring to the coinsurance that we have been talking about for the past 5 minutes. That means with the PERS Platinum plan, after you've paid that deductible of $500 if you're single, if you're in an employee-only plan, then whatever the cost of the service is, then you're only going to pay 10% of what's left and the plan will pay the other 90%. And then going forward after since you've already paid that $500, for every time you have a service that has a coinsurance, you're only going to pay 10% of the cost of that. Okay. The out-of-pocket net max for this plan is $2,000 for single, $4,000 for family. And deductible is $2,000 for out-of-network providers. I mentioned this 2 slides ago, so just know it's going to cost you if you go out of network. As I mentioned before, on top of that $2,000 deductible, your split is going to be 60-40, not 90-10. So you've got that flexibility, but unless you have the money for whatever the extra costs might be, then you want to try to stay in network. The difference between the platinum and the PERS gold is that you pay a bit more for the PERS gold. So usually the PERS gold plan tend to be a little bit cheaper than the platinum. So the split is 80-20 for coinsurance, and it's $1,000 deductible for single, $2,000 for family. And you notice the out-of-pocket max is a bit higher. So $3,000 for individual and $6,000 for family. And again, that splits 80-20. And as I mentioned 2 slides ago, the out-of-pocket deductible is $2,500, and it's a 60-40 split when you go out of network. So hopefully I haven't lost anyone. We're getting close to the end here. There are a few things that I'm going to hit on, but I just want to make sure no one has any questions so far. All right, so I don't see anything in the chat box. All right, so I always get this question: how do I know which plan is best for me? Okay, here's what I would say to you. Number one, there's no cookie cutter answer that a person can give you in terms of which plan is best for you, because each person's situation from a financial and a health standpoint varies. From a financial standpoint, how much do you have to pay out of pocket? There's 2 things you consider. Number one, what is the employee deduction going to be? So if that's not an issue and the employee deduction offers or affords you the ability to enroll in a particular plan without it being very expensive, the next thing you want to consider is, how much is this plan going to cost me in terms of things that I'm going to have to pay throughout the year? Like my co-insurances, my co-pays, the out-of-pocket max. And then, how many children do I have under that plan? Because it's fine and dandy if it's just you. But if you've got a whole family where you've got co-pays that you've got to pay and co-insurances you have to pay, then that can add up. So you want to think about that. The other thing you want to think about is, do you have a health circumstance that requires you to have the flexibility to see specialists without having to wait for a referral? So these are things that you really do need to sit and think through based off of your circumstance. I know that it is always nice to get suggestions from other people, but what you want to do is take that with a grain of salt, because no one person's scenario is typically the exact same. And what might work for one person may not necessarily be appropriate for you. If you need some additional help, I'm happy to make one-on-one appointments with you to kind of help you walk through things to consider to help you make a more educated choice about the plan option that might be best for you. So feel free to reach out to me. Okay. So I'm going to go to some of the questions in the chat box. So one of the questions is there an Anthem PPO option, or does Anthem only provide HMO options? That's actually an excellent question. So Anthem Blue Cross is the facilitator for the Anthem HMO traditional and select, but Anthem Blue Cross is the facilitator for the PERS PPOs. So that is who does the PPOs, both the platinum and the gold. That is Anthem Blue Cross. Okay, so good question. The other question is, can we switch our insurance provider? For example, if we have Blue Shield Trio, but want to switch to Blue Shield Access Plus, is that possible? Yes. And open enrollment is the time to do that. And I'm actually going to go over the open enrollment dates here shortly in a second. But yes, you can do that. This is the time to do it, okay? Now, outside of open enrollment, you're stuck with whatever plan election you make until the next open enrollment period. So when you make your election during open enrollment, your new plan takes into effect January 1. So if you make a new plan election during open enrollment this year in 2023, the new changes take into effect January 1st of 2024. Okay. So hopefully that answered your questions. Perfect. All right. I just want to take 2 seconds just to hop on pharmacy benefit managers. So pharmacy benefit managers, they kind of work to help manage the flow of medication that is available to the members that are enrolled in the various plans. They help limit costs as well. So there are, as you may well know, what they consider generic drugs versus brand drugs. There are also specialty medications. So they are kind of like the in-between person that helps manage these costs and manage the flow of medications that are available to the members that are enrolled in these various plans. And not all of the CalPERS plans are managed by one pharmacy benefit manager. For example, Kaiser Permanente not only are they the health maintenance organization itself, but they also manage the prescriptions and the drugs as well. OptumRx does the pharmacy benefit management for Anthem Blue Cross, Traditional Select, HealthNet, Saluti Moss, United Healthcare, and the PERS Platinum plans, PERS Platinum and PERS Goals, because as you remember, if you remember, the PERS plans, the PPO plans are administered by Anthem Blue Cross. And then Blue Shield, both the Blue Shield plans are managed by CVS Caremark, okay? All right, things to know. To make the best decisions for you and your dependents, consider your healthcare needs for you and your family, review your health plan summary, and review your plan and your costs and your network if you are considering making changes. Those are going to be the first 3 places to start. I am always happy to help sit with you, but if you want to get started on kind of giving yourself a foundation for what you need, those are the places that I encourage you to start. Start with what are your healthcare needs for you and your family. Take a look at your health plan summary so you can see if what you currently have is meeting your needs, and then review your plan, what you're paying, and what your network is. That's a good place to start, okay? And closing us out with some resources, there is the CalPERS mobile site. You can go on and you can take a look at that. I don't know that that's up yet, so I would hang tight on looking at that until maybe the end of August, but the link doesn't change from year to year. But you can go onto the CalPERS webpage and you can look at the health benefit plan information. I wouldn't pay any attention to the rates because that will get you confused. In fact, you know, I always steer you to the actual information that is on the benefits webpage, because for Montebello Unified School District employees, you won't pay any of the rates that you will see on the CalPERS webpage. So it doesn't really apply to you. Open enrollment this year goes from September 18th to October 13th. Okay, that's when you can make any changes you are thinking about making. Okay. And your benefits specialist, Maribel Sanchez, who is awesome, awesome, awesome. If you have any questions, she is there in your benefits office. We do have Laura Simmons, who is payroll and benefits manager, who has graced us with her presence and is on today's call, which we appreciate. And then my name is Asia Simpson. I have my name and my phone number. I'm your wellness and benefits consultant, but I'm also your patient advocate. So if you have questions and you need some help, I'm here to help you with that. And if you need some help with trying to figure out which plans, even if you've started with what I've suggested and you still can't figure out, I'm happy to help on that. Okay. And we've got some more resources for all of the plans here, links, telephone numbers. You can always look at that. And so I want to just hit up some of the